This week, it's all the news that's fit to pod about for the month of April of 2024. Hello and welcome to another episode of Echoes of Giant Monsters. I am your host, your pal, your buddy, Slick. Thank you for joining me on this little bit more of a casual episode where I'll just be kicking back and shooting the breeze with you about some of the newsworthy items over the past month. We have figure news to discuss, we have Godzilla Osaka Fest to discuss, we have Monsterverse news, and of course we have some Godzilla Battle Line talk because what a month it was in Godzilla Battle Line. But before we get into all that, I just wanted to take a quick little pause and say you can find this podcast wherever you catch your podcasts. And also you can find this podcast on YouTube, where also a lot of other content I put out is on there, such as YouTube Shorts and other miscellaneous things. I can be found on Twitter at Echoes of GM Pod. And yeah, that's all the places you can find me. Now we're about 3 months into the launch of this podcast, and I thank everyone for their continued support. I think in general, I think going forward, I think rather than just the podcast will still be kind of the heart and soul of Echoes of Giant Monsters, but I think I'm going to also expand into other content, including doing more historical shorts and short form videos, and maybe just kind of whatever I feel like doing at some point. Why limit yourself to one thing, you know? So, and that includes every now and then doing these kind of news roundup episodes when there has been an eventful month. And I think this has been a pretty eventful month. So, let's kick things off with some Monsterverse talk. So, I think the biggest news is, as of this recording, which is Sunday, April 28th, that Godzillaxkong: The New Empire has passed $500 million in the worldwide box office. That is wild. Especially when you consider that it had only a budget of about $135 million, presumably a marketing budget that was around the same amount. So certainly the movie has been in the green for quite a while and has been making that green. That was really corny. But, I have to admit, before the movie came out, even though Minus One was a huge success and it seems like we are just in general riding a pretty strong Godzilla high, I'm always kind of like one of those types when it comes to Godzilla that I'm always like a little worried of like, when's the other shoe going to drop? What is the public going to lose interest? And when is this incredible ride that we've been on going to start coming to an end? And I'm happy that that is not the case with this movie. In fact, it has seemed to only reaffirm that, uh, the general audience is ready for more kaiju content, more Godzilla content. I'm sure Godzilla and Kong being kind of weird buddy pals with each other and putting out these like fun buddy adventure movies together, I think has really struck a chord with the public. And it looks like we are on pace to get more, and probably it's going to get more and more ridiculous, which is totally fine with me. I love the Monsterverse being just over the top and silly. I love Godzilla running. I love Kong jumping on Godzilla's back while he's running. I love the fact that we have Godzilla suplexing Kong in the desert. There's just so much good stuff that came out of the New Empire, and I am happy that we are going to get more. But again, that box office result for New Empire is just incredible. I think right now it's probably going to end up being the most profitable in terms of, its budget against its box office return of the Monsterverse. So we'll see if it ultimately surpasses 2014. I think it's got a little bit of a ways to go for that. But either way, I think this will probably end up being the most profitable Monsterverse movie. And that's a good thing. And it is also one of the most merchandise movies. I feel like every time I go to Target or Walmart, I am seeing a fresh wave of merchandise on the shelves. I will say I am frequently at Target for various things. That merchandise does not stick around long, and it is replenished often, and then it is gone again. So it seems in general that this has been just quite the moneymaker for the Monsterverse. But that's not the only big Monsterverse news. We also got the official word that Monarch Season 2 is official. It's been greenlit. I think it's supposed to, or projected to probably come out in 2025, it sounds like, which I'm going to guess is probably going to follow a similar pattern to Monarch Season 1, where it'll probably drop as the lead up to the next Godzilla Kong movie, which, if you're asking me, I hope the next Godzilla Kong movie finally pulls the trigger and gives us an invading race of space aliens. That would just be swell. But yeah, Monarch Season 2 has been announced, as we saw at the end of Season 1. Spoilers. That they are now on Skull Island with Kong. So I'm going to guess we're going to get a very Kong centric season, which that's pretty exciting. You can tell very different stories with Kong. I mean, MonsterVerse Godzilla is pretty much the century of the Hollow Earth, or that land in between Hollow Earth and the surface. And not to say that he doesn't have character or uh, story of death. I mean, let's be real. MonsterVerse Godzilla is he's got a purpose, and he carries out that purpose well. And he's very dedicated to his job and to his duty. Kong is much more emotive in the MonsterVerse. It's very easy to tell stories through Kong, as he has a strong connection to humanity, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with the Monarch cast. I'm curious slash optimistic, hopeful that we get a return of the '50s cast. They were probably my favorite part of the first season, and I would like to see that story continue. So yeah, it's things are cooking right along on the MonsterVerse side. As of this recording, this is the weekend that Godzilla Kong the New Empire released in Japan. I don't think we really have a full report yet on how it's doing, but it sounds like it's being promoted heavily. The initial feedback seems like it's good. I think, Godzilla is coming off the Oscar win with -1. And I assume that has only heightened um, interest in the new empire. And it's just it's a good time. Yeah, it's a good time. I don't have another way to put it. We have these two very different takes on Godzilla. I've always said there's one of the best things about Godzilla is that there is probably a Godzilla for everybody. Fortunately, I am one of the types that likes pretty much all the different takes on Godzilla that we get, and I would love more, which means I want a Singular Point Season 2 announcement. And I just hope, if I just keep saying that, it will eventually happen. But yeah, so with Godzilla being much more in the general population's consciousness, we're seeing much more attention put on him. And I think that is my awkward segue to talk about Godzilla Fest in Osaka, which just happened. In the West, it happened overnight last night into this morning. Um, it seemed like a fun celebration of Godzilla. I think people were maybe expecting some big news to come out of it. I think there was some confusion online over what there was a section in the program that talked about something about like a live action trailer release, but in reality, it was just a collection of all the Godzilla movie trailers were just being broadcast in Osaka. But I think that's a little unfair, against the festival. I don't think they promoted it or advertised it as being, something like the November 3rd annual festival we get every year, where there are big news items dropped. This seemed like it was just more of a celebration. We got a replay of the Godzilla and Jet Jaguar short from last November, plus a lot of cool behind the scenes making of footage, which I think already aired. I feel like I had seen that previously. I apologize if I'm a little wrong on that, but yeah, we got the cool making of featurette for that short. We got more of a teaser for the next short coming up this November, where Godzilla and Jet Jaguar will team up against that very tired-looking GMK King Ghidorah suit. Uh, you know, but it's okay. I enjoy the fact that they are keep dragging out these old suits that are 20 plus years old. That gives me very Showa vibes, and I'm here for it. One of the other big things that we got was all 4 episodes that are currently out right now for Chibi Godzilla Raids Again. And that's a good little segue for me to briefly talk about Chibi Godzilla Raids Again. So I admit I did not really watch most or much of any of the first season of the Chibi Godzilla shorts that they put on YouTube. And this is where you can kind of insert that meme of Shaq where he says, "I'm sorry, I wasn't familiar with your game." I've been watching these shorts as they drop now, which they usually come out about midweek in the West. And I had no idea that Chibi Godzilla was like a fever dream in anime form. I thought like Gojiban was like a crazy weird show, but Chibi Godzilla is like insane. It's very quirky. It's like I can't even really describe it. Like everyone's kind of got these weird personality traits. Like Rodan, like when his mood crashes, he crashes and falls to the ground. That's like oddly dark. Uh, Chibi Mechagodzilla is like just gotta deal with Chibi Godzilla all the time, who just seems like a real pain to deal with at times. But they have like a very comical episode where Chibi Mechagodzilla gave them all smartphones and they started a group chat, and just hilarity ensued. I mean, they're all like about 3 minutes long. I highly recommend going and watching all of them on YouTube. I will now be watching every single week. I I apologize, Chibi Godzilla. I was not familiar with your game, in the immortal words of Shaq. One thing that was notable on the merchandise front from Osaka Fest was in celebration, in coordination with the release of the grayscale Silvertone Shin Godzilla Blu-ray that's coming out in a few months. The Bandai movie monster series Shin Godzilla figures are getting re-released with that kind of monochrome repaint. That looked really cool. I'll have to see more pictures of them in hand. I can only buy so many repaints, and I already have a couple of the Shin Godzilla repaints, but these looked kind of cool, at least in the promo shots. And so we'll kind of have to reserve comment on that. But that's going to be my pivot to talking about what I think was one of the more interesting figure drops that kind of came out of nowhere this past month. So Bandai kind of surprise dropped this new line of action figures that right now just contain Final Wars Godzilla and Kiryu. So there's 6-inch articulated figures that come with beam attachment. So Godzilla has his atomic breath, which you attach to him by like a replacement lower jaw that has the beam attached, and similar on that front is Kiryu with his like kind of mouth laser cannon blast thing. So these are kind of interesting because they're not just articulated Bandai Movie Monster Series figures. They're like whole new molds, whole new designs and styles, but it looks like they took a step back in paint and detail in place of a little bit more of like a stylized action figure look. They look like what would be kind of like how like Playmates used to make their figures a few years ago, kind of lacking that level of detail and paint that Bandai figures usually have, but again, way more articulated. So I'm a little on the fence on how I feel about these. I did admittedly pre-order the Final Wars Godzilla one. My big issue is that these are almost $30, and they seem to not be the most painted or detailed. And that really bothers me with Kiryu because Kiryu is one of the most Toyotic. I always say Toyota instead of Toyetic in the Godzilla franchise. And, he just looks too plain in the photos that we've seen so far. But the Final Wars Godzilla looked all right. I don't know if it's going to look $30 all right, but I guess we're going to find out in August or July when those figures drop. But I'm very curious to know where this line is going to go. I think it's a thing that maybe once I have them in hand, I could feel very differently about them. They do look like I think I read somewhere they might have like 15 points of articulation, which seems like a lot. So, first impressions are a little mixed right now, but I'd rather wait till I have it in hand, and then maybe I will go back and get that Kiryu figure if the Final Wars one is cool. And I don't know. I mean, maybe this will be the start of like a new cool sideline for Bandai that's somewhere above the movie monster series in terms of features, certainly not in terms of paint or detail, yet below their extremely expensive SH Monster Arts figures. So that kind of remains to be seen. They did also announce their SH Monster Arts Evolved Godzilla, which right around the same time Haya Toys has announced their Evolved Godzilla figure. Both of them look fantastic. They both seem like very excellent figures. There's a lot of discourse online of people trying to compare the two. I think it's going to be one of those things. Like, I think when they come out, we'll have some better pictures and videos to compare them to each other. I'm going to kind of hold off comment on that till now. I have not traditionally been the biggest Monster Rats fan. However, their Godzilla versus Gigan figure that I got a couple months ago is like incredible. It's actually one of like it's quickly become like one of like my favorite figures in my collection. So I'm gonna kind of hold comment on that till both of those figures come out. But I think I mentioned this in an earlier episode where Hiya Toys also announced a Shimo figure, and I instantly pre-ordered that. I cannot wait for that. That looks fantastic. And also, I guess while we're on the topic of Shimo, because I am basically picking up any Shimo merchandise that comes out these days, I was able to find the new gigantic Playmate Shimo figure. It's I mean, like literally just the regular scale figure, just sized up to be in the giant line with Scar King and Kong and Godzilla. And even though it's like the exact same figure, just bigger, I don't care. I love it. Shimo's the best. This is like, Anguirus is like my guy on like the Toho side of things. On the MonsterVerse side of things, like, this could easily become a Shimo fan podcast at some point. I hope we get an Anguirus and Shimo team up at some day. That would just be the best. All right, Battle Line. What a month Battle Line had. This will probably go down as one of the more infamous months in Battleline, at least in its recent history. Every new unit that Battleline has been dropping basically since the -1 season has, I don't want to say been power creeping. I mean, there definitely have been some power creeping units, but I don't think anything that was like too over the top, but boy, did that change this month. So this month we got Chibi Mechagodzilla and Chibi Godzilla Duo, or the Chibi Brats, as I'll just kind of keep calling them, and an alternate form of Destroyer, the Ariake Destroyer, which I've also just been kind of calling Lightsaber Destroyer. So, I won't even spend the 10 minutes it would take to try to go over all of the Chibi Brats special moves and all the status effects they give. But I mean, they are basically like 10 characters rolled into one. They do burn, they do stun, they have like the Shinden distraction, they revive, they have all sorts of weird things going on. Friend of the pod, Sir Melee, has done a lot of videos on YouTube about the Chibi Brats. It's also very fun always watching him try to read through those very detailed descriptions that the game has. But oh boy, are they something! They have pretty much been in every single deck in the game in the past month. Every player's been using them in conjunction with Ariake Destroya, because Ariake Destroya has a very unique ability set too, where he uses his beam horn when a unit. Let me get this right. When a unit is not focused on him, he attacks with his beam horn. When he and another unit are focused on each other, he fires his regular oxygen destroyer ray, which on its own is not very powerful. But the beam horn does a ton of damage. It gets an attack boost, I think, off the top of my head, against ground units. It also causes a defense debuff. So if you combine him with Chibi Brats, you have these two units that are extremely difficult to stop together. Some people were kind of figuring out counters with train bombs. I think Godzilla Earth works okay for the most part against them until Godzilla Earth gets distracted, and then Destroyer just pulls out his lightsaber and slices up Godzilla Earth. So it's been quite the season. Those two units paired together are again just you know extremely difficult to counter. And then, if you pair them with something like Gigan 04, it's really like, the match kind of becomes strategic planning between, or timing, I should say, more like strategic timing of who is going to place basically those 2 to 3 units in the right places at the right time, who's going to be patient enough to try to get those units like out of position to basically then counterattack with the same units. On one hand, kind of like that. Other hand, not the biggest fan of the Chibi Brats. They were a menace. So when I think of what makes a unit good or bad in Battle Line, I think of it in terms of, does it kill deck creativity or does it help it? And the Chibi Brats, as a unit, they are one of the most versatile, impactful units in the game. But on the flip side, people are pretty much running the same decks. They're using them. They're using Ariake Destroya, and they're using Gaigen 04, and pretty much everything else is secondary. So on that front, I'm not a fan of them. I think that makes them a quote unquote bad unit in the sense, in my opinion, because it kills deck creativity. This is just like the same thing before Kumo got nerfed, that every deck basically just ran Kumo and everything else was secondary. Now, I think there's a difference, though, between the Chibi Rats and Kumo, which I obviously see a lot of comparisons to. Kumo was, or is, he didn't, die. Well, no, I don't want to spoil nothing in the movie, but no, in the game, he was a 3-star unit, or is a 3-star unit. So it was very easy to get him, very easy to level him up, and you could have a high-powered Kumo uh, very quickly. The Chibi Brats are 4-star units. They're not as plentiful. You're going to have to invest your G materials in them if you want to level them up. So once the season ends in a day, their utility is going to drop off. You're not going to see them as much. You're going to see them in the fixed modes still. I think they're going to probably be mainstays in egg mode. And if you do play a lot of fixed mode, which you should, fixed mode is very fun. They are probably going to still be kings in that realm. But at least in the regular game, as of the season's end, you're going to see a significant drop off, just like we've seen with the newer Mogira, the newer Space Godzilla, the newer Biolante, all these other new units that have come out the last few months, because people are going to need time to beef them back up before they actually regain their utility. So in that sense, I don't think it's as bad as Kumo was or anything by that stretch. But I mean, on the flip side, I did enjoy using them, but they were just used way too much this season. Everyone had to run them. I'm going to be happy to see them go, or at least see their usage drop off for a while. But on the flip side, like I said, I'm recording this on Sunday. We don't have much in way of new units for the coming season. Everyone, I think, was expecting a Godzillaxkong New Empire season. We did not get that, or it does not appear we are getting that. The only new unit at the time of this recording that's been announced is Aqua Mothra, who appears to have a long range attack, and there is an unknown at this moment green bar above his health bar, which I don't know what that does, but it looks like in the quick preview video they dropped, they being the Battleline Twitter channel or Twitter account. It looks like when Aqua Mothra expires, there's a little energy boost, kind of similar to what Legendary Mothra gives, and it looks like there's like a shield boost or a shield buff on death. So that's going to be kind of interesting. That kind of paired with the buffs that were already announced for next month, where Rainbow Mothra is going to get an increase to the shield buff. Seems like it's going to be a very we're getting to a very defense heavy meta right now or it could shape up to be the new meta. It could be very defense heavy with units like Mogira giving huge defense buffs, and now we're going to have multiple Mothra units, it looks like, giving shield buffs. So that's kind of interesting. I think I feel good about that. We're also going to see a buff to Ultima, who is going to get an attack buff, which I'm pretty stoked about. Ultima is one of my favorite units in the game, although his utility has kind of dropped off over the last 6-7 months. He just attacks a little bit too slow, but he used to be one of the most powerful units in the game. And I think with the attack buff, if it is significant enough, which it very well could be, because the Battleline devs seem to just love giving insane buffs to units over the last few months. So if it is significant enough, that'll make up for his slow attack and the evolve time that you have to go through, and he could return to prominence as one of the top units of the game. But that kind of remains to be seen. And it'll also be interesting to see what happens with Fire Rodan. The devs just listed a broad buff to all special moves, but I don't really know what that means. Does that mean the speed boost is also going to get buffed? Is the healing going to get buffed? Is his attack going to get buffed? So either way, that's some nice attention though to some units that have been in the game a long time that used to have very big roles in people's decks that have kind of fallen by the wayside in recent years. So that should be interesting. I suspect the reason why we didn't get the new Empire season is because the anniversary of Battleline is coming up in June, where they have already kind of announced that there's going to be a big overhaul of the currency and the economy in the game. I think that's only a good thing. There's other mobile games I've played for long stretches of time, and at some point, when the inevitable overhaul to the currency and the economy came, it only led to good things. It only led to making it easier to upgrade more units more quickly. Probably because Battle Line is expanding with new units like every month, and the roster is getting pretty decently sized. I hope it's going to make it easier to level up more units quickly and keep them viable. It's hard to kind of use new 4-star units beyond their initial season because you just don't have enough currency to keep them viable once they lose their intro season buff. So I'm gonna guess that we're gonna get the new Empire season to coincide with what I've been thinking is probably gonna be like a soft reboot of the game. I feel like if you're kind of overhauling the currency to that degree, you're probably getting ready to make a bunch of other changes too, and the fact that it's going to kind of coincide with the anniversary of the game. I suspect like a maybe reboot's not the right term, but I expect a lot of changes in Battle Line this summer, and I think it would make sense if you have the new Empire season kind of coincide with the anniversary season. But yeah, it was a wild month. It's been a few wild months, really, since the -1 season. As I keep saying, Battle Line has really been shaking up the game every month with their new units. I have no reason to think that tradition is not going to continue, and we'll have to see where it goes. So that is pretty much all I got to say for newsworthy items. It's about, almost a half hour into this podcast. You don't need to listen to one person ramble for too long by themselves. So, again, I think going forward, there's going to be a lot more variety in the content in terms of what I do here, what I do on the YouTube side of things. I have some things lined up where I'm going to have friends of mine who have no interest in Godzilla movies or kaiju movies in general watch a movie with me, and I'm going to get their instant reaction. I think that'll be kind of fun and interesting. I'm going to try to tailor the movie to that person's personality and kind of see, how that goes. I think that'll be interesting. Not like doing it like, oh, what'd you think of this movie? Like from 1 star to 5 stars or something like that. Scale of 1 to 10 or whatever. I just want to more see like how a non-fan perceives a movie that I think might play off some of their interests, because that's what a big part of this show is, be it a podcast or on the YouTube side of things. It's still kind of getting that personal connection, and I'll have I think some fun historical YouTube shorts coming up. There's just need more hours in the day. That's the way it goes. But either way, I'm not going to ramble too long here at the back end. I hope you enjoyed this like little casual episode where we kind of recap the month that was. And until next time, I don't know. Take it easy. Have a good one. See ya.